A Murder of Ghosts. Written and read by Evie is Evil. Chapter 6. Author's Notes. Am I bullshitting ghost biology here? Absolutely. I don't think there are any trigger warnings for this chapter. Smiley face. Alright, and now on to the chapter. Dude, you look like death warmed over, Tucker commented on Tuesday morning. If only death was warm, Danny snarked back. Seriously, I think dying gave me circulation issues. I'm freezing all the time. You look terrible, is what Tucker meant, Sam countered. Danny was in fact doing terribly this Tuesday. Yesterday was not great at all. He had called Jazz from the Far Frozen, where she calmed him down enough that he could fly home. He ended up eating a late dinner and falling asleep next to Jazz on the couch. Safe to say, not only was he emotionally wrecked and tired, but his back hurt from falling asleep on the couch. What happened yesterday? Sam asked. Danny sighed. I don't really want to talk about it, but in short, frostbite kicked me out. Okay, that requires context, Danny, Tucker said. You can't just say your doctor kicked you out. Well, he just said he would reach out when I could come back. I kinda had a panic attack, and he's not letting me see red until he's more recovered. Sam and Tucker met each other's gazes. They seemed to have a silent conversation before turning back to him. Just means we're keeping you this week. So much doom you'll be falling asleep at your computer, Sam and Tucker commented with cheeky grins. Man, his friends were the best at distracting him. That's assuming I need sleep, they both groaned. Danny, just because ghosts don't need sleep doesn't mean you don't. We have tested this many times. Danny did end up falling asleep playing Doom with his friends a couple times. Sue him, he tends to fall asleep with people he's comfortable with. Didn't stop his friends from bullying him at school the next day. At this rate, he would get chronic back pain from the strange sleeping places he keeps finding himself in. Today was Friday, and the last day of his banishing, as his friends had started to call it. Frostbite had told Danny last night that Red was healing well enough, and today he was taking him off anesthesia. Danny was finally allowed to visit again. Danny? Are you heading off again? Jazz called when he walked into the house in the afternoon. Yeah, I'm heading off after I drop off my bag, he replied. Jazz walked over to him from the living room to join him in the hall. Please avoid any more traumatic events if you can, she told him. And let me guess. Be home for dinner? Danny teased back. Jazz had a habit of mother henning him. Actually, I packed you dinner. Something tells me you may stay a while. She held up a Tupperware container filled with a home-cooked meal. Danny just stared at it. Remember, Mom and Dad are coming back Monday night. Thanks, he said, a little dumbfounded. He loved Jazz's home-cooked meals. He didn't get them often because most times the fridge was filled with ecto-contaminated food. He guesses a week was long enough for Jazz to clear out the fridge. As always, she smiled back at him, giving him a quick kiss to the top of his head before ruffling his hair and walking back to the living room. Frostbite! I'm back! Danny called as he flew back into the caves. The Yeti was waiting for him in the waiting room. Young one, it's good to see you, he smiled. So, how is he? He is progressing all right. He does appear to have slightly accelerated healing, though not up to the standard of a typical ghost. We removed his facial bandages, and the burn scarring is severe, so I will warn you about that. Danny grimaced. He has had his fair share of burns, most being electrical, but he was lucky enough not to scar, except for the Lichtenberg trailing up his left arm. What about his chest? He hesitantly asked. Frostbite also grimaced at this. Well, at first, he was resistant to treatment. The incisions refused to clot and stay sealed, but after a few hours he stabilized. Danny's nerves increased. Was that normal? Then a small part of him thought, Would that happen to me? Frostbite seemed to notice his nerves. That actually brings me to something I wanted to discuss with you. Frostbite motioned to a row of chairs in the waiting room. How about you take a seat? Yeah, that did not help his nerves. Was Red dying? Could ghosts re-die? Rest assured, young one. This is nothing to worry about. Red is going to be fine. Danny deflated into a chair. But I believe I have discovered the cause of this interesting predicament. I did a bit of research, and I believe Red is a half-formed revenant. Half-formed? Danny knew what a revenant was. He had done a bit of research on ghosts in his own time. Revenants are ghosts with emotions so strong that they revive their bodies out of sheer will. Yes, that means he wasn't able to fully revive, but he is still tied to his body. Danny processed that. So his chest coming open was actually... Oh, Danny was going to be sick. He couldn't imagine being awake when someone performed an autopsy on him. Actually, he could. Vividly. Thanks, Mom and Dad. That is one of the reasons why I believe we had complications, he continued. Very little is known or documented about half-formed revenants. Most remain in the infinite realms and become fully ghost, losing unique to revenant traits, and others... Frostbite paused here. Others go back to their bodies after a prolonged period. Danny had to think about that. There were definitely some interesting aspects there. If they woke up in a grave, would their bodies be healed? Or would they become zombies? And what if the body was cremated? What was he thinking? That probably wouldn't work. Frostbite chuckled, bringing Danny out of his musings. Those are certainly interesting questions. Danny blushed. Had he said that out loud? I don't think there are enough cases of the half-revenants going back to be sure what happens. Most of them are special circumstances. Then why do half-revenants exist? Like, what makes them different from other ghosts? And why are you telling me this? Well, half-revenants are tied to their bodies, and they bleed red. They often still have their death injuries, and their ghosts reflect injuries sustained to their bodies post-death. Pretty quickly, they tend to shift to full ghost or revive, so some believe them to not exist, or for it to be more of a condition than a type of ghost, Frostbite explains. As for why this is relevant, I wanted to warn you, because it appears that you have grown quite attached. There is the slim chance that Red could disappear back to his body. I wouldn't want you to panic if he was suddenly gone one day. Danny leaned back in his chair. This was certainly a lot to think about. So, what you're telling me is, don't get too attached? As kindly as I can put it, yes, Frostbite said. But the longer he remains in the infinite realms, the less likely he is to go back to his body. It's already been quite a while. I will continue to monitor his revenant status regardless. I feel like a kid who found a stray and asked to keep it, Danny chuckled out breathily. You want to see him? Frostbite asked, clearing a bit of the tension. Yes, please. Danny stepped into the room, parting the curtains. Red was laying in the medical cot, with no blood in sight. This time, his face was free of bandages, revealing the scars and still healing injuries marring it. The entire left side of his face was covered in a myriad of healing burn scars. There were also other scars across his face, most looking quite old. The most glaring, aside from the burns, was a large J sliced into the flesh of his cheek. Danny approached cautiously. His vigil chair was back at the side of the bed, where it was earlier in the week. Danny took the seat, lowering himself into it slowly, eyes on Red the entire time. He reached over and felt the boy's arm, the part free of bandages. It was cold. He knew this was standard of ghosts, but it still itched at the protective side of Danny. He half stood up and pulled the thin hospital blanket up higher along Red's torso, careful to not touch his chest. When he was properly sat again, Danny took the hand of the boy closest to himself. He knew he wouldn't feel a pulse if he searched, so he looked up at the monitors surrounding the bed. One of them looked similar to a heart monitor, but Danny knew from experience it was an ectoscanner, meant for monitoring ghost cores. The lines looked steady enough. He wasn't a doctor. Danny settled in there, leaving his hand on the boy's, and eyes glued to the ectoscanner. Jason feels like he's floating. There's nothing around him except darkness. Maybe he's cold, or maybe he's warm. All he knows is that he's waiting for something to happen. After floating for who knows how long, he feels a bit of awareness seep in. He keeps his eyes closed, feeling wakefulness settle in. Bat training kicks in, and Jason slowly begins assessing his surroundings, while keeping his eyes closed and breathing steady. The first thing he feels is cold, a bone-deep cold that fills every inch of his body. He clocks this as strange because he can feel the itchiness of a thin blanket covering most of his lower body. The more he lets himself feel, the more he notices. His legs and finger ache with the telltale sign of healing broken bones. His chest hurts in a unique ache, along with the tugging of stitches every breath he takes in. A lot of his skin also tugs uncomfortably, with the tightness of healing burns. Luckily for Jason, these are ignorable for the moment. His pain is dulled with what is probably heavy painkillers. He listens to his surroundings next. He hears the beep of a heart monitor, and the way it echoes in the room is familiar. It must be in the Batcave. He settles in a bit more comfortably at that revelation. Bruce and Alfred are good at what they do. Lying there, he starts to think. How had he gotten this injured? Something must have gone south on patrol. It was a little concerning, but he was quite tired. Thinking could come later. He caught himself drifting. Damn, they got me on the good stuff. He laid there for ages, letting the fuzziness take over his brain. After a while, he felt his hide start to clear a bit. He went to feel himself out again, and noticed something he missed before. There was a hand resting on his. It was too small to be Bruce's, and Alfred wasn't big on physical touch. Must be Dick, then. Dickie Bird? I get knocked around enough that you've come over to play the overprotective card, he says without opening his eyes. The cave's medbays are always too damn bright. Huh? Dick responds. And that doesn't seem right to Jason. Dick always had some witty response to his teasing, or he would go all mother hen and start scolding Jason for his injuries. He wouldn't sound confused like this. Jason froze and quickly reassessed his surroundings. He was a little too cold for the cave medbay. Alfred always kept them warm with freshly heated blankets. The sounds were all off when he listened. The heart monitor beeps weren't the right rhythm, and the cave sounds weren't right. He couldn't hear the distant chittering of bats, or the clacking of the bat computer keys, or even the sharp footsteps of Alfred milling about. It was starkly quiet compared to what he would normally expect. His eyes shoot open, and he sits up fast. Ouch, that hurt. He brings up a hand to rub at his chest, but thinks better of it and stops halfway. Looking around, he processes that this is not the Batcave, although it is a cave. Jason finds an IV in his arm, connected to a bag filled with green. He reaches over to rip it out, but his hand is still being held captive by not Dick. He looks over at the boy, his brain still too fuzzy to focus on more than one task at a time. It's some boy with white hair and glowing green eyes. Something about those eyes draws Jason's attention. They look familiar, but he couldn't place where. Red, are you okay? It hits Jason then. The waking up to horrible chest pain and looking down too. He looks down. He hesitantly brings his hand up to feel his chest. Yep, still hurts. And that's why those eyes were so familiar. A cool dread starts seeping in, flowing down his spine. His mind starts spiraling, and he can hear the heart monitor picking it up. Right. Treat this like being in an unfamiliar situation in the field. Deep breaths. Robin mindset. Red, are you good? The other boy in the room has a steadying hand on his shoulder, and Jason can hear the sound of the hospital bed motors moving to come up and meet his back. It's not my name, he mumbles. His brain is still fuzzy with either panic or leftover sedatives. He isn't sure which, and can't be bothered. Deep breaths. You have to stay calm. What? It's not my name. Jason pauses. What am I doing? It's Robin. The other boy brightens at this. I'm Danny. Nice to officially meet you. The other boy shoots him a blinding grin. So bright. And that is the end of Chapter 6. Author's notes. I wrote a lot again. I'm proud of myself. So far my word counts per chapter have been growing. Next chapter is also pretty long. And reader's notes from me? Yeah, I realized when I'm writing, I like to write with a lot of dialogue, which is nice and all, but Danny and Frostbite actually have pretty similar voices that are like pretty low, at least the way I read them. And that actually like made my jaw a little like tense. Huh. Or maybe that's because I've read 2 chapters in one day. Anyways, I think I can squeeze in one more before I go to bed. Really just smack them all out real quick. 3 in one day. This will not end horribly at all. Anyways, thanks for reading. Bye!